Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. So something very interesting showed up in my feed recently regarding my old place of residence and business and some of the issues that the city is having, and it's hard to imagine that they did not bring some of these issues on themselves with some of their own policies and also some of the rampant mismanagement and just everything else. So it says here that Gary Jenkins is resigning as Mayor Eric Adams' Social Services Commissioner after a, quote, tumultuous tenure. And I'd like to dig into this a little bit. We're also going to have two other articles linked here because it's necessary to put together a full story so that you have all the context. It says, on Tuesday, at least 60 men were denied placement after visiting the massive adult intake shelter near Bellevue Hospital in the East River. Attorney Joshua Goldfein from the Legal Aid Society's Homeless Rights Project said DHS revealed the violation in a meeting Tuesday morning, explaining that they did not have sufficient capacity in a handful of assessment shelters where many homeless New Yorkers are placed before the staff identify another more suitable shelter for them. Now, my thought when I read this, because relating to New York City's right to shelter law, is how is it the city's fault if there are no beds to put these homeless people in? Yet it seems like there were. It says rather than place the men directly into another adult shelter where vacancy rates had remained relatively high, officials at the intake office kept them waiting and said they had no space, Goldfein said. This delay violated the city's legal right to shelter that stems from a 1979 court decision ordering New York City to house men experiencing homelessness. Violations of the ongoing consent decree are known as Callahan violations after the lead plaintiff in that lawsuit. Now, I really kind of wonder, is it possible that this is just standard incompetence from a city that doesn't know its own laws? As I've gone over many times on this channel, you can literally ask New York City, what are your laws and how do I obey them, and get, oh. You can ask them, what is your tax code so I know exactly how to provide you with sales tax, and they'll go, oh. This is something that is just incredibly aggravating if you're a business owner here, and I've decided to record more of it. Unfortunately, I only did so during the tail end of my time there. I can't imagine this being a case of malice or somebody getting some sort of financial kickback for this happening. This is something that I would imagine is just your standard run-of-the-mill incompetence. Now, there are some serious issues with the homeless system in New York City, and I've gone over them in great detail in this video. The TLDR of that is there is a nonprofit where the directors of that nonprofit are getting over $400,000 a year in compensation to run places that look like prisons, and that's the one that New York City is stuck using as their homeless shelter, and that nonprofit is also a nonprofit that at some point had very, very close ties to the governor, which is just a complete and utter mess. But if you're interested in that, you can watch this video that I did about 2 years ago. New York City's homeless problem is a giant scam, and read all the citations that I included in the video description. I don't understand what the motivation would be to tell a homeless person, I don't have a place for you, when you do, when you're not the one that's going to be financially affected by it. So I would just chalk this up to standard New York City incompetence because it's run by idiots. The delay at the men's intake facility are the latest problem for Department of Social Services, which oversees DHS and whose commissioner, Gary Jenkins, is now under Department of Investigation probe. Jenkins faces allegations that he fired his top spokesperson after she notified the mayor's office about families waiting overnight at the Bronx intake office earlier this summer. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great if instead of having to obey the laws and actually be competent at my business, I could just fire the people that get me in trouble? Wouldn't it be great if that inspector that walked in that just made shit up, I could just say, you're fired. Go away. Go away. Oh, auditor, you think I owe $1.2 million instead of $5,000? Go away. Go away. I wish I had the ability to do what New York City officials do. And if this is actually true, this dude shouldn't be resigning. He should be getting fired, and it should be a shameful firing. If somebody whistleblows on you because you are not doing your job properly, and you fire the person that told people that you are the reason that people are out on the street instead of in an actual vacant homeless facility, then screw you. Jenkins has denied the accusation and has received support from Mayor Eric Adams, who was in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. Again, everybody gets punished for breaking a confusing set of impossible-to-follow regulations and laws unless you work for the city. You can just fire the person that was talking about it. Rules for thee, but not for me. Standard New York City governance. Still, DHS is mandated to provide shelter to anyone in need, which often means absorbing people failed by other city, state, and federal agencies and policies. A dearth of deeply affordable housing amid a rise in evictions and displacement continue to fuel homelessness in New York City. Median rents have reached record highs, while a minuscule vacancy rate at the low end of the market makes finding an apartment difficult. There's going to be so much pushback from my audience on this, but honestly, in my heart of hearts, I kind of wonder if the answer to this is to tax people there more. Hear me out. The problem clearly seems to be that more people want to live there and be there than can fit there. You have 8.4 million people in a space the size of Knoxville, Tennessee. That's not natural. Maybe less people, lower room, less rent. Here's the thing. Send more people $600,000 to $1.2 million surprise tax bills that they have to spend a year fighting. You may find that you have a lot more vacant apartments and storefronts to house people in. I had an 1,100 square foot apartment, 13-foot ceilings. You could probably fit 20 bunk beds in there. And that's all free space now for New York City. In all seriousness, like, why have a wealth tax that's set at $1 billion or $50 million? Create a wealth tax. Set it at $200,000. You'll have a lot of vacancy. There's a clear-cut, obvious problem here. And I'm memeing a little bit, but in all seriousness, there's a clear-cut problem. You have way too many people in way smaller space. Again, listen, that shit worked very well for me. I hightailed it out of there. I didn't just take my stuff, my speakers. I took my cat, my business, my Vandersteens, and my people, everything, and I'm never driving through that state again. I'm telling you, this stuff works really, really, really well. Do more of this and you will have a higher vacancy rate. Maybe that'll help solve your problem. So this is where this really gets interesting. So how are they trying to solve this problem now that they have of too many people coming to the city because they have this right to shelter law and they're saying we're open to migrants to come in from anywhere. You can come from anywhere in the world, any other state. By all means, come here. We'll figure out. We have no idea how to pay for it. We have no idea where to put you, but we like to say that we care. So it says here, in a January visit to Texas, Mayor Adams told reporters that there was no room in New York for migrants. This sounds kind of familiar. Days before, he had released a statement saying his city had welcomed 40,000 asylum seekers since last spring, providing them with food, shelter, and other resources. We are at our breaking point, the statement said. Based off of our projections, we anticipate being unable to continue sheltering arriving asylum seekers on our own and have submitted an emergency mutual aid request to the state of New York. Sounds a little familiar. Mr. Adams confirmed to Fox 5 on Monday that the city was providing free bus tickets for migrants. Okay, this is starting to sound really familiar. I'm trying to think of where else this has been done. Assisting migrants who have been sent to a city but want to go elsewhere. Some want to go to Canada. Some want to go to warmer states, and we are there for them as they continue to move on with their pursuit of this dream, Mr. Adams said. Pursuit of their dream is an excellent way to spin doing something that certain other people have been doing recently and getting a lot of flack in the news for. The New York Post has reported that migrants in New York City are being given free bus tickets to Plattsburgh, New York State, about 20 miles south of the Canadian border. From there, they pay taxis and shuttles to take them to Quebec. And to be clear, the New York Post is kind of a shit rag, but this is the BBC sourcing them, not me. Quebec Immigration Minister Christine told reporters in Montreal that the development was surprising. She is surprised by the arrival of migrants. Surprise implies that you aren't expecting them. Where have I heard this before? Again, it's ringing a bell, but I'm not exactly... God, if I could only remember. She said it highlighted the need to solve the problem of Roxham Road, referring to an unofficial border crossing south of Montreal used by thousands of asylum seekers every year. I think it makes the urgency of the situation even more apparent, Ms. Verge said, adding that Canada and the U.S. were negotiating to update the Safe Third Country Agreement. The treaty, signed in 2002, requires migrants to make an asylum claim in the first country they enter, whether it is the U.S. or Canada, but it only applies at official border crossings, which Roxham Road is not. This loophole allows the migrants arriving from New York to have their asylum cases heard by the Canadian immigration authorities. Definitely sounds familiar. And to be honest, I really do think there's a real discussion to be had here. Generosity is what makes us human. Unlimited generosity is what makes us broke. And this is one of the things that kind of bothers me when we're having this discussion is we have a lot of discussion on, okay, well, we need to do something to help the people coming in, by all means. And I tend to lean on the side of help the people coming in. Some of my best employees have been migrants that have worked and done amazing, amazing work, not because I am paying them less money than I would pay somebody who's born here. I'm often willing to pay them more money than somebody who's born here because they do amazing work. People that have come here from a faraway land where shit sucks, man, it's funny how they don't complain about a lot of the crap that we complain about here that we take for granted. They really appreciate it. And there's some kind of work ethic that just exists in somebody that's willing to learn a new language, start fresh in a new place, and YOLO. That is something that I don't have the personal balls or courage to do. I'll admit it. I'm for trying to help people that come in. But again, generosity is what makes us human. Unlimited generosity is what makes us broke. This is one of the problems that I had when we were talking about lockdowns and everything else in New York City 3 years ago. Save only one life, but at what cost? And is it practical or sustainable? Let in and house everyone, sure, but is it sustainable and at what cost? It's easy to talk the talk and say we are going to do all of these things, we are going to take everybody in, we are going to shelter everybody, we are going to feed everybody. But bruh, you can't even manage your own city. The people that work at the city don't even know their own laws. You don't even understand your own sales tax code. Let's be real, you have a $10 billion budget deficit because you continue to increase your budget in spite of the fact that you have an incompetent administration running every aspect of the city. You destroyed large swaths of your tax base by willingly and happily destroying businesses over a 2-year time period with garbage policy. And now you want to, no, you don't have what's necessary to do what it is that you want to do. And now you're sending them to Canada. Unbelievable. You can't even take care of the people who were born in New York City, who are 3-generation New Yorkers. How are you going to take in tens of thousands of people every single year into a city that, for the most part, is kind of full, at least residentially speaking? Obviously, we're not going to have the homeless people live in offices. If we were doing that, we could take in the world's homeless in New York City. But residentially speaking, even when you read these articles about 100,000 or 200,000 people have left New York City, all that means is that people now have 2 roommates instead of 3. How are you going to manage? And this is the thing that drives me nuts. It's very easy to have the sentiment of we would like to help. It is difficult to actually come up with a framework and a plan to make it sustainable to do so. It is very easy to talk and say that we care. It is very difficult to actually come up with a way to do things. It's very easy to say things should be more repairable. More people should fix things. It's very difficult to then actually come up with a framework of how normal, average, everyday people that don't have a lot of electronics experience can then do very difficult repairs and get them done with a good success rate. The problem that I have with a lot of the rhetoric that goes on regarding this discussion is not the ethical or moral implications of one decision or the other, but rather the complete lack of understanding reality. You have a finite set of resources, you have a finite set of people, and admittedly, when we're coming to New York City government, you have a finite set of competence. How are you going to simultaneously run a city that you can barely run as is with the people who were born there while saying we're going to accept people from all over the world with no plan? You're probably going to surprise Canada by busing them to Canada using a loophole that she is doing her best, probably clenching her teeth to say, I don't want to sound the way New York did when Florida and Texas bust people there, but oh, surprise. Surprise. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I am happy that I'm not a part of that mess anymore. I'll be honest. Happy I'm not a part of that mess anymore. Don't know how else to put it. See you in the next one. Bye now.